Hello and welcome to the Page to Pixel podcast. I am your host, Reid and joined with me, as always, is my dear boy and cuddly bear, Jeremy Ruck. How you doing there, buddy?
Oh man, I'm the cuddliest. How you doing, Reid?
Oh, I'm doing just swimmingly. So for this episode, we wanted to do something a little special. Since it's our 10th episode, technically our 11th, looking at our first episode 0, which is kind of an introduction to us. Since this is our 10th episode, we wanted to do something special. I think we kind of want to do something special every 10th episode just to kind of break up the phrasing of our episodes. And, you know, it's a lot of research, as you can imagine, to kind of go through all of these franchises and kind of break down the information. It does take actually days, if not weeks of research to kind of do this stuff, despite us thinking that it would be a lot easier kind of starting this podcast. But so this time around, since this is the 10th episode, we want to do something that's really near and dear to my heart. And that is gaming soundtracks. In particular, since it's the 10th episode, doing a top 10 gaming soundtracks. And since there's two of us, what we're going to do is kind of break down our top 10 and kind of alternate. So I'm going to do like my 10th favorite, and then Jeremy's going to do his 10th favorite. And we're going to kind of work our way down from there. It's just kind of a fun way to kind of, I don't know, show you guys a little bit more about our own past history with gaming music. And hopefully you guys kind of like some of the tracks there. I think the question, and I don't want to kind of spend so much time on this because I think a lot of the times we just kind of talk to talk. But Jeremy, what do you think the just general overall importance of music in video games is?
Overall, I think the music is just kind of the background that's going to set the tone. Very similar to in a movie. It kind of subconsciously tells you not what you should be feeling, but it just kind of it draws that connection so you know what's going on. If you should be feeling tense, if you should be feeling relaxed, just very similar to what you'd see in like film. If anyone likes watching movies like I do,
right? Yeah. It's just like with a movie, but I think the separation between the two mediums is interesting because video games you have to be more involved with the process of it. So I think amplifying the level of intensity with music, you kind of need to have a little bit more intense music because you're typically not going to be watching, you know, a movie and it's going to have this really uppity soundtrack like the Mario games or the Sonic games. So I think what's really cool about music in video games is it adds to the immersion too. And as you might have mentioned, it really does depend on the situation of the game that you're playing because there's certain games that you don't really need the soundtrack. Obviously, it's welcomed and stuff, but there are certain games where the immersion level is absolutely different. We've been playing a lot of Civ lately together, which has been a lot of fun. And typically, when we're playing Civ together, I don't know what you're doing over there, but I'm usually maybe watching like a movie to the side, or I'm listening to music or something like that, and just kind of chilling and, you know, plotting my next move. Unlike if I'm playing, you know, Elden Ring or something like that, you know, I want to listen to more of the music side of things to kind of get that full immersion. So it does really depend on the game itself rather than a movie, because most times, you know, the audio and the video go hand in hand with movies. You can't really have one without the other. So I think what's interesting about games is it can either be give or take and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that? Mr. Man.
I gave my thoughts on the importance of music in games.
It's fine. We'll just cut this. It's fine.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I already gave my thoughts.
Just wakey. Okay, here we go. So since we don't want to kind of get too in depth with this conversation about the importance of music, obviously it's hugely important. If you guys are interested too, if you guys are into gaming podcasts, which you probably should be if you're listening to this, and I've mentioned them before, the Super Mercado brothers, they do an amazing job of breaking down different musical compositions and their importance to the game and stuff like that. Like, I'm not endorsed with them at all. I've never met these guys, but, you know, their stuff is awesome, and I really like kind of hearing a different perspective of the importance and reasoning for music in games. I know nothing about music theory. I just really enjoy it. And I think when we're kind of transitioning to our lists here, we kind of talked before the podcast started about how we wanted to rank our games or franchises or however we were doing this. And you said, does this have to be objective or subjective? And I'll just tell you, my whole process with this is very subjective. Obviously, some of these aren't going to be soundtracks that, I mean, a lot of them are going to be really familiar soundtracks, but some of them might not be, maybe one or two of them. It's just really, when I'm looking at soundtracks, I'm looking at things that are really important to me, that have had a lot of like nostalgic feeling behind them, are things that get stuck in my head a lot. And I think that all of these soundtracks and songs that I'm going to mention are really, I don't know, like I think about the songs sometimes before I think about the game themselves because they're that important. So that's kind of my method when I was choosing these game soundtracks. What was your method or mentality when you were choosing your top 10?
So probably very similar to yours from the sound of it, but I kind of set the rules. I assumed you were going to be more objective, like, oh, this is a classic gaming, soundtrack. This is what everyone says is great. So I kind of was like, oh, I'll try to be more subjective, but I guess we're both subjective, so that's fine. But
yeah, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
It's my party. I'll cry if I want to.
Correct.
I went more on the lines of like, what do I legitimately listen to? Like, honestly, Sonic soundtrack's great. I don't listen to it a ton. Mm-hmm. I just kind of rolled back through my Spotify for a lot of these. I would say 5 or 6 of them, when you said we're gonna, like, this is what we could do, I was like, oh yeah, I can just rattle off 6 of them off the top of my head that I know I listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then
I kind of just had to go back through my Spotify searches and libraries and playlists and just kind of see what do I listen to a lot of. And that's kind of how I was able to piece this list together.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy process for me. It took me a long time to kind of compile this. I kind of came up with this idea to do the top 10 gaming soundtracks, but then once I sit down to do it, like you said, I had the top 5, the top 6 already in my head, but then I'm thinking, all right, to fill out a top 10 list, it's easy, but it's also really difficult because there's so many games. I actually made like a list of honorable mentions that I'm going to go through just really briefly. It's 7 more games, so it's like...
You nerd.
I know. I'm trying to like narrow down certain things. I was like, "Dang, this is really difficult to do."
I had that same thing too. Where after I got I got those obvious ones cracked in, and then I had a list of probably 15, and I was like, "Oh man, now how do I narrow these down?"
Yeah, for sure. And I did make a playlist, and I'll make your playlist too. But I made a playlist of all of the game soundtrack songs that we're going to talk about from my end, and I'll post them up on our YouTube, and I'll get those linked into all of our social medias if you guys want to check them out. Hopefully you'll be familiar with some of them, but maybe not some other ones. So I think some general ground rules, I guess you could say, for doing this is we can kind of introduce what game it is or what franchise it is. If you know the specific tracks, by all means say it, and then just kind of say why you think it is to be ranked where it is and why it's important to you. Does that sound fair?
That sounds fair. All
right. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is our top 10 gaming soundtracks of all time. There is no debate. There is no questioning it. This is 100% what it is. There is no going on Twitter and complaining about this. This is the absolute top 10. There's no question, right?
Correct.
All right. So we'll start with my number 10, and then we'll jump to Jeremy's number 10. My number 10, and this is the one that I kind of struggled with, is like, who do I cap out at number 10 versus not being on the list at all? And I went with Kirby's Adventure. So Kirby's Adventure for the NES came out, 1993? This game is super important to me. Like I sort of mentioned with the Kirby podcast, that this is the first game I ever beat. And it's one of those games I go back to time and time again. And just looking at the gameplay versus like the soundtrack, they just complete each other in a lot of ways. It's this very whimsical, cute, explorative soundtrack, and like sometimes I'll be humming in some of the themes and stuff like that. I think I put like, when I made the YouTube list of this, I put like 4 or 5 of them. There's not really any one particular song that jumps out at me. It's really just overall, like I think top to bottom, this is a really excellent soundtrack, and it's really memorable to me. So that is my number 10 is Kirby's Adventure. Nice. Do you have any reflections, or you just want to jump to your 10?
I would say it's a solid pick for number 10.
Okay, that's fair. All right, let's jump to your number 10.
My number 10, and the only reason that it is number 10 is because it is a game I've more recently played, would be Bloodstained Ritual of the Night soundtrack.
Ooh, good pick.
I think that does an excellent job. Just the tone and everything of that game is just so perfect with the artwork and the theme. That sort of electric violin they've got going on in a lot of the songs. It's just a chef's kiss. And the only reason that it's not higher up on the list is just because I've listened to a lot of these other songs for longer. Like I said, I'm going by sheer volume of how much I've listened to this music.
Okay, no, that's a fair estimate, and that's cool that you've added something that you've only played in the last year to your list. I don't think I did that with any of these. Yeah, that's really cool.
I may have listened to the soundtrack more than I played the game.
Oh, well, that's like, cool, yeah.
I put it on a couple times at work, just listening to it, just getting weird looks. I'm like, shut up.
I think, I'm just going to Google this really quick. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, soundtrack. I'm pretty sure it was by the same, yeah, it was Michiru Yamane, who did a lot of the other Castlevania soundtracks, especially Symphony of the Night, The Goat. So that's really cool. And yeah, a lot of the Castlevania / Bloodstained stuff is top notch. So that's a really solid pick for number 10. All right, next one.
My number 9.
Do you want to do your number 9, or do you want to jump to mine? Or how do you want to do this? What kind of order do you want to do?
You go. Just go.
Okay, cool. I'll do number 9. And this one was a tough choice. Like, I have it at number 9, but it might be higher, it might be lower. It's Street Fighter 2. With fighting games, especially in the early 90s, there was so much competition for like being the best fighting game, because you had Street Fighter, and then you had Mortal Kombat come out, and then you had like King of Fighters and Fatal Fury and Tekken and all these games, just a glut of games that came out in the 90s. But I think what separated them, not only like the combat system and everything, but also the soundtrack. My brother loves Mortal Kombat, but I don't really think that the early Mortal Kombat stuff is super remarkable, because it's all the same really dark vibe to it, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great soundtrack. But Street Fighter 2, in particular, Guile's theme is probably one of the greatest gaming like songs of all time. I would also say Ken's theme, Balrog's theme, and T-Hawk's theme. Just some of my absolute favorites. I know them off the top of my head. It's one of those games where it's a weird thing to say, but like growing up, playing Street Fighter 2, in a weird way, it influenced a lot of my worldview. It's like the first time I'm like, 4 or 5 years old playing this game. And like, you're seeing all of these other countries represented by the fighters, and like the themes that kind of came along with them, and like the stages and stuff. So like, that was like my early identifier for understanding, like, this is what Mexico looks like or sounds like. This is what China. I know that's obviously very stereotyped, but like it kind of made me interested in that, in like international stuff.
I'm laughing because I know exactly what you mean, though. Like, my very young impressions of these other nations was based on playing Street Fighter.
And obviously, there's some questionable stuff now, but like back then, you don't mean any negative thing by it. It's just what you see and what you interpret.
That was just the times, man.
So you're saying not everyone in the United States is like playing the most kick-ass jam ever while they're in an airport full with like F-15s flying around? I mean, I am, but I can't speak for every American. Are you saying that every Brazilian is not a green man with orange hair that shoots electricity?
That might be true, actually.
We can't prove or disprove that. So if you're from Brazil, hit us up and let us know if you can zap people with your green skin. But yes, Street Fighter 2, probably my favorite fighter game of all time. I mean, just like the Street Fighter games in general. I mean, like Street Fighter 2, 3, 4, they've used a lot of the same soundtracks. But I think Street Fighter 2 has the best video game like fighter soundtrack ever. And it's still one of my absolute top favorites of all time. So that is my number 9. So if you want to comment on that or jump into your number 9.
No, I think it's a great pick for number 9. My number 9, the Minecraft soundtrack.
Ooh, that was one of my honorable mentions. That was originally that was on my list. It was going to be on my list.
I didn't know if that'd be on your list. Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be up there. It was going to be like in the 8, 9, 10 area. It's just great ambient music, but I'll let you talk about it.
No, so it's if you've ever played Minecraft, you may have overlooked it because it's really, really subtle, but it's really relaxing. And it's something that I listen to if I'm just having like a really anxiety-ridden day or stress-ridden day. It's just kind of like help me calm down. Basically, it's just so chill.
Yeah, no, I've suffered with anxiety disorder for a long time, and I distinctly remember a lot of times when I'd be having to work on something and be focused or kind of de-stress, I would specifically listen to the Minecraft soundtrack. So it's interesting that we both have that kind of common connection to it. Yeah.
And like looking at my list of everything, it looks like almost all of my songs are like my tones are either going to be chill and relaxed or to hype you up.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
I don't have the middle ground. I've just got like jock jams or Beethoven.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at my list too, maybe there's one of them that would be pretty kind of nebulous that we'll kind of get to, but the most of them are, yes, like you said, they're really uppity or really
polarizing.
Chill. Polarizing,
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Just like we were saying with, games in general, like when you're playing a game, does it need to be a chill soundtrack or does it need to be an up-tempo hype soundtrack? And I think that's kind of showing here. So that's your number 9 was Minecraft, which is an awesome choice. My turn to number 8.
Yep.
Cool. So this is a game that is considered one of the best games of all time. I've never beaten it. I've gotten decently far, and I only ever played it for the first time about like 4 years ago or so, and that is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger, obviously, massive, huge hit. Back one of the Squaresoft games, I think 1995, 1994, somewhere around then. But the soundtrack is just like, it's one of the reasons why, again, I've never played this game before, but I hear samples of the songs and I hear like covers of the songs. I'm like, dang, it's one of the only few examples. I think it's the only example on this list where I heard the soundtrack before playing the game and I'm like, I need to play that game. So songs like Corridors of Time, Shala's Theme, and Burn Bununga, or Burn Babunga, whatever it is, that really crazy caveman song. I don't know, man. Like the whole soundtrack, it's got to be one of the top soundtracks ever, objectively. But for me personally, since I've not beaten the game, and it's not something that I've been grew up with, this is the most, I guess, recent addition to the list. So Chrono Trigger, definitely an amazing, amazing soundtrack.
I have also never played Chrono Trigger, so I unfortunately don't have any comments on it.
But if anything, just check out the soundtrack sometime because it's super good. All right, so that's my number 8, Chrono Trigger. So what is your number 8, Jeremy?
For me, number 8, I'm not sure if you've ever played this one, Far Cry Blood Dragon.
Oh, I have. Yeah, it's that super synthy soundtrack.
So if you've never played Far Cry Blood Dragon, I don't think it was a DLC. I think it was just a standalone game made from, was it Far Cry 3?
It was DLC, but it was a standalone. It wasn't like the third game, but it was made with the third game, and I think it was technically DLC, but yes, it was.
It was a standalone game, but it was set in this weird hyper futuristic but also 80s cartoon, so everything's this neon blue, neon pink, and you're playing some robo commander who's got a cyber arm, so it's just this hybrid of kind of imagine Vice City but set in a futuristic, there's robot T-Rexes that are running around. It's just it's super cheesy and fun, but the soundtrack's just very synthy and 80s. It's like a G.I. Joe commercial almost.
Yeah, I have played the game a little bit. I don't think I've ever beaten it all the way through, but yeah, I remember the whole atmosphere with the soundtrack and the gameplay were just top notch when it came out.
That's good synthwave that I'll catch sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't. People have made fun of me for listening to synthwave, but I listen to it unironically. I think it's a cool genre for sure.
No, it is very cool. It feels like I'm living Knight Rider.
Exactly, and that's what I want to do with my life. So yeah, no, that's a good pick. It's I think more people remember the soundtrack than the game, which is
probably
a thing. All right. So that was your number 8. So my number 7 is World of Warcraft.
No.
No way. But yeah, I've played Warcraft on and off since it came out. I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with the game. It's kind of like heroin. I'll not play it for 2-3 years and then I'll jump back into it. But I think it's one of those games that the monotony, I think, sometimes of the gameplay is made a lot more tolerable by the soundtrack. And there's a few. I mean, there's like hundreds of songs now with all the expansion packs, but the major songs that stand out to me are the Dun Morogh song, which is like the starting zone of the dwarves and the gnomes, Howling Fjord, and the tavern themes made by the beautiful David Arkenstone. So all of those themes, like, again, like there's times where, I'm a teacher. So sometimes when I'm just sitting in my room or the kids are working on something, I will just like play the World of Warcraft soundtracks, like just ambiently in the background. Because again, just like with what I was mentioning earlier, this is one of those soundtracks that is not meant to be intrusive. It's meant to be just background music and sort of represent the environment around it. And it's interesting that 2 of my choices here are like ice themed. So I think that's kind of an interesting choice there. I just think, it's a very memorable thing. I hear these themes and I immediately get taken back to when I first kind of started playing the game or certain milestones within the game. So especially the tavern themes. The tavern themes I still listen to pretty regularly if I'm playing like D&D or something. They're just excellent. So
yeah,
World of Warcraft.
Funny you bring that up, because my number 7 pick is also World of Warcraft.
Really? For real?
Yes. I have played World of Warcraft for maybe a total of 10 hours at the absolute most in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But when you mentioned playing D&D, you were the one who introduced me to the wonderful music of World of Warcraft while we were playing D&D. I remember D&D. I remember you loaded it up one day. I was like, damn, I don't really care for the game, but the music is really good. And so it's like, yeah, to this day, I'll still turn it on when I'm feeling like I want some fantasy music, and I throw it on when I'm playing D&D sometimes just as a background. No, I've listened to a lot of the music, and it's really solid.
Yeah, so that's cool that we both have it in the 7 spot. Yeah, I don't know why it's not higher. I guess it's just like it's not. None of it's like too striking enough to be 100% memorable. It's all just really good without one of the tracks being like the best of all time. You know what I mean?
I think that's why it sits at number 7, is because it is meant to just be background music. It doesn't have anything that, like, I couldn't hum or sing any of it if I wanted to, but I know it's all solid.
For sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our next picks, I am just going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a second. All right, so it's interesting that we both have the number 7 at World of Warcraft. I had no idea that you were going to choose that. That's really cool.
I didn't either until I just kind of did some soul searching. Yeah, one more track I want to add is the Arthas song. I don't know if it's called Arthas My Son or whatever it is, but it was like the cinematic trailer song for the Wrath of the Lich King, and it is just banging. So yeah, let's jump on to my number 6. And I will just say with number 6, it is chili dog time. It is Sonic the Hedgehog. These games, as I talked about in the first episode, are like super, super important for me nostalgia-wise. Like I have so many fond memories of playing these in the summer. I didn't pick any one like specific game in particular. My favorite songs are from 1, 2, and Sonic and Knuckles, particularly Marble Zone from the first game, Chemical Plant Zone, which might be one of my like top 3 individual songs of all time for video games, and then Chemical Mushroom Hills. Bops. Say that again. It's like Chemical Plant Bops.
It does, and then Mushroom Hill from Sonic and Knuckles. It's just like the bass line in Mushroom Hill is just top notch. So Sonic the Hedgehog, I mean, all of the songs are really good, some more than others, but I mean, Chemical Plant is like, you can say that to most people, most gamers, and they'll know that song. You know, it's so memorable. I never really like got super into like the level 1 songs like Green Hill Zone and stuff like, yeah. They're great, don't get me wrong, but like some of the other, you know, levels 3, 4, and 5, basically the only ones that we could get to when we were kids. Right. Since you're playing it so much, you have to be listening to that nonstop. But I mean, it's a good thing that they're so good. But
so Here's my question for you then.
Yes.
Would you rather listen to the like from the console version, or do you prefer like all the like guitar covers or metal covers of them? Because there's hundreds of them out there,
right?
And they do kind of shred.
Yeah, and honestly, I listen to both. I listen to both kind of if I want to do it just for more like for fun. Yes, I'll listen to like E-Rock. If you've not listened to his stuff is amazing. He does like all the video game covers, all pop culture covers, and that's actually the reason that I got into Chrono Trigger, is because he did a cover of Chrono Trigger songs. And it was like one of the coolest guitar songs I've ever heard. And I'm like, oh, I should check out that game. And sure enough, it's amazing. So I don't know. Like, I think with both of it, like if it's like an 8 or 16-bit old school game, yeah, I'll take the chance and listen to some remixes. There's this website that I used to frequent called like OC Remix, I believe it's called, where it's like free downloads and people will like take their remixes of certain songs. And there's some really good stuff on there. Like they'll do like just remixes of Castlevania games, or just remixes of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, or just remixes of, Mario is Missing, just really obscure stuff. So again, if you've not checked out OC Remix, I don't know if they're still around. I hope they are. They do some really cool remix, but to not belabor the point, I listen to both the metal covers, the orchestral covers, but also the original OSTs. So, alrighty, yeah. So, what do you think of
six? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. What was that?
What do you think of Sonic?
No, Sonic's great. The only reason it's not on my list is I just don't listen to a lot of 16-bit old school music.
Well, and plus you kind of have to be in a mood to listen to Sonic. It's not like everyday music. It's not like I need to chill out and listen to Chemical Plant Zone, because all you're going to do is get up and start like bopping around.
Start destroying your surroundings.
Disrespect your surroundings. All right, so you're number 6 then, sir.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla soundtrack.
Ooh.
So I am a pretty big fan of the band Wardruna. They're more of like a fall band for me. Mm-hmm. That's just like I'm not a very like spiritual person, but in the fall is when like I become as like in touch with nature as I ever get, and that's like very much what Wardruna is. Reid, you're familiar with them, I know. Mm-hmm. But so the main guy from Wardruna was actually a composer in the Assassin's Creed Valhalla soundtrack. So I would be remiss in my duties to not throw like huge props to him. And you can really tell his influence in the Assassin's Creed Valhalla soundtrack. I've probably listened to the music more than I played the game.
Sure. So shout out to Einar Selvik, the lead guy of Wardruna. Great band if you've never checked them out. Yeah, like you said, it's
if you're into chanting.
If you're into chanting and like Nordic folk music, which is sort of like the thing du jour, that's the thing about Viking culture stuff, is like it really became popularized with Vikings back 10 years ago. God, it's been that long.
Yeah, he's also in that show too.
Yeah, they've done. I think Heilung's like the heir apparent to Wardruna with that sort of like neo folk ambient stuff. But yes, I've not really played a whole lot of Valhalla, and I know the Assassin's Creed soundtracks. A lot of people really like those. I think it's like Jesper Kid who does all of those soundtracks. They're really good soundtracks. I'm not like a massive Assassin's Creed fan, because I think they just kind of get to the point where they're just collectathons, and like I'd rather I don't like a lot of hand holding anymore in video games. So I don't know. But yes, the soundtracks for Assassin's Creed are really good, and I'm just going to trust your opinion that the Valhalla one, I will probably have to check it out now that I know that Wardruna is involved. So,
if you like Wardruna, it's basically just more of that.
Then I'm definitely on board, with that one. So that was your number 6. We'll jump into the top 5 here, ladies and gentlemen. My number 5 is you're probably going to be really surprised that this is not higher, but it's going to be Castlevania: Dawn of Sorrow and Castlevania: Symphony of the Night. In particular, for Dawn of Sorrow, which is the game that really made Castlevania my favorite series of all time, Pitch Black Intrusion and Dracula's Tears are the soundtrack titles of 2 of the tracks that I like the most. Pitch Black Intrusion is probably one of my favorite individual songs, video game songs of all time. So, if the second I hear that song, I'm like 16 again, and I'm playing the game again. So it's like
listening to Linkin Park.
No, not listening to Linkin Park crawling in my skin. I don't even remember what I was listening to when I was 15. It was like weird stuff. But Dawn of Sorrow is, I think, one of the better Castlevania games, and we're obviously going to have a Castlevania episode at some point, maybe this October. But the Castlevania games have always had really top-notch soundtracks, like top-tier soundtracks. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a good game or a bad game; they always have really good soundtracks. And I think I just have the heavy bias towards Dawn of Sorrow as being one of the better games because it was the game that got me hooked. And I don't think anyone, even if they're a fan or not, would argue with the Symphony of the Night soundtrack because if you don't know a whole lot about the Symphony of the Night soundtrack, it was like one of the first soundtracks that I can recall that brought in a lot of different genres, like metal and classical and jazz, and like it's just like this huge mashup of different styles and stuff like that, and it's super memorable.
Symphony of styles.
Yeah, no, it's I mean the Castlevania games, they kind of go along with the Bloodstained games because for Symphony of the Night, my number 5 here, it's the same composer as Bloodstained, so it's that same composure, that same sort of style. So that is my number 5.
What are the two? There's 2 songs I know I've listened to a lot from the whole Castlevania series.
I'm guessing Bloody Tears is like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like the really quick, like, yeah.
Yep. And then there's like just like the do-do-do-do.
Vampire Killer. Yep.
Yeah, Vampire Killer. Those are pretty.
Yeah, no, those are top notch too.
Yeah, like I've listened to those a couple times. There's some really sick covers.
Oh yeah,
I saw a chick playing Bloody Tears on the piano, and it almost made me cry Bloody Tears because it was so beautiful.
Yeah, I think the Castlevania games are like the most ready to be metal covered, because they have that very like hard edged vibe to them. So yeah, no, Castlevania. I mean, all of their soundtracks are top notch, except for Harmony of Dissonance. I don't talk about that much because it's just not good. But anyway. I could do an entire podcast on just Castlevania soundtracks, but I will not today. So tell me your number 5.
Number 5. Are you ready for Command & Conquer Red Alert 3?
Ooh, Red Alert 3. Again, a game that, like your World of Warcraft, I maybe played for 30 minutes.
It is... I wouldn't say it's metal, but it's just very, like... It's got a lot of drive to it, especially like the Hell March.
Oh, I know Hell March. I know Hell March.
You know Hell March. I see it a lot on like War Thunder YouTube videos. I would say there's probably only maybe 3 or 4 songs that I would classify as like more than just background music. But Hell March is like on that intro video where you've got like Russia dropping in their tanks and Japan coming in with their like crazy mechs, and it's just like. It just gets you so jacked up and ready to roll.
Yep.
So you didn't play a lot of Red Alert 3?
No, I played my brother obsessively played Red Alert 2, so I'd always hear that. And I like Red Alert 2. I like the Red Alert games in general. Just 3 just kind of fell off for me. I don't know why. Sure. I think I had some issues with it, like optimized for PC and stuff. Like it just wasn't working with my computer back in the day, so I just kind of dropped it.
Like Tim Curry, is that what it was?
Yeah, it's definitely that. But no, the Red Alert soundtracks are pretty bopping. They've got some great, like you said, drive to them. So that's definitely a good choice for sure. All right. Anything else on Red Alert? Are we good to move on?
No, like I said, there's only a couple songs, but the couple songs are like I listen to a fair amount.
Sure. Next one is number 4 for me, and this is probably not going to be a huge surprise for a lot of people because it's probably a lot of other people's favorite. It is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And Ocarina of Time, it like a lot of Zelda games that kind of came after it, it builds a lot of emphasis on music. I mean, the fact that they have a obscure musical instrument in the title kind of infers that music's going to be a part of this, and it absolutely was. I mean, there's so many different songs in this game. There's so many different vibes with this game. The ones that I had in particular, again, the entire soundtrack is awesome top to bottom, but the Gerudo Valley gets in my head a lot because it's super like flamenco, it's super like Spanish themed and stuff like that. Goron City, which is kind of a bop, and it's not really the greatest song because it's super simple, but for some reason I just love the Temple of Time soundtrack song. Again, all of them are super great. I think a lot of the temple ones are super creepy, which I think with this game, maybe more so than a lot of the other ones I've talked about so far, all of these songs in this soundtrack are super important to the game as a whole. Like, I don't think of Zelda Ocarina of Time as just like an action game. I really like the music makes it. We kind of said off recording that 30-40% of the game is the music, but I think this is like 60-70. Like, I think this makes the game so much better, is this musical score in Ocarina of Time. So super nostalgic for me, but yeah, that's my reflection on Ocarina of Time.
I just have the Legend of Zelda series in general at my number 4.
Okay. Hey, look at that.
We're lining, the moon and the sun are lining up here. So the 2 that I played heavily was the original one for the NES. Mm-hmm. And then Majora's Mask, the lesser of the 2, from my understanding of what people say about the Nintendo 64. But I didn't have Ocarina of Time, so...
It's interesting with the Majora's Mask Ocarina of Time. It seems like the discourse for people's opinions on these games has gone more towards Majora's Mask in the last couple of years.
Oh, has it? I remember everyone hating Majora's Mask, and I was just like, people did the one I have.
Yeah, people back in the day kind of did, and I remember people not really liking it because it's too dark and weird, but now everyone just lauds it as the best Zelda.
Oh, interesting.
And when I was growing up, it was Ocarina of Time. And now everyone's like, oh, Ocarina of Time, it was actually too basic and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. I love both.
The hipsters are pushing up their glasses.
They are. I love both of them dearly. I never got super far in Majora's Mask. It always kind of intimidated me and kind of freaked me out. But it's a great game.
It was a hard time trying to figure out how to get the mask off when you were like 12.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that first mask on. I could understand how, like, a lot of frustration, because it took me a long time to figure out, like, how to get back to being normal Link.
But yeah, the soundtrack that plays in the Termina city, like the ding 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 ding, that's super good. That's super memorable.
Yeah, and like, to be honest, I don't listen to a ton of Legend of Zelda outside of like playing the game, but the reason it's so high on my list is like I will randomly just like internally hum Legend of Zelda songs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's just if I'm doing some like random task or something, it's just like, where's this song from? Oh, yeah, that's Legend of Zelda. And I always think back to, like, I've got the ingrained in my mind from Majora's Mask when you go to visit the big fairy lady. Mm-hmm. Just that song. The do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Yeah. Yeah, like, no, I think they deserve to be on my list, at least at number 4, for how ingrained that music is into my kind of core being.
Yeah, and that's the same thing for me with... Yeah, I think a lot of people would consider the Zelda games like some of the top music of all time. I mean, there's so many memorable ones, like the overworld theme, the dungeon theme. Like, there's so many really good Zelda tracks.
The main
100%.
Theme.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think it's... For the Zelda games, it really is a driving force for the music being a really big part of the success too. Okay, so unless there's anything on Zelda, I can jump into my top 3 then.
Top 3 countdown. Here we go, Reid.
All right, so for number 3, we're going to be chasing some chickens here. We are going with Fable.
Oh, you chicken chaser?
Yeah, particularly the first one. I mean, I know a lot of the same songs were used or reprised in the second game, but in particular, the Oakvale theme, the Bowerstone theme, and a Summer Fields theme
are all good.
Oakvale's probably, again, like I was saying with Pitch Black Intrusion from Dawn of Sorrow, Oakvale's probably my top 3 to top 5 of all time. Like, there's something just super mystical and calming and enchanting about the Oakvale song. So I know a lot of people kind of detract from Fable that it didn't live up to expectations, but this game came out and it just reminds me of fall, and the whole soundtrack sort of exemplifies that too. A lot of the other tracks are kind of lost on me. Like, there's some other tracks that I do remember, but like the 3 that I mentioned, Oakvale, Bowerstone, and Summer Fields, are like top tier for me. And they just really bring me back to that nostalgic sense. And again, like the World of Warcraft soundtrack, I do occasionally just play this, at school when I'm working. So just to kind of have something in the background to be, fresh on things. So that's my number 3 is Fable.
Fable's a great pick for number 3. I know we talked a pretty decent length of the soundtrack in our episode on Fable, but I would agree. That's a great pick. My number 3 is The Witcher 3.
Ooh.
The first two, their soundtracks I don't think were maybe necessarily as good. I did play both of them, and they didn't strike me as much as the Witcher 3 soundtrack did. This one I actually did listen to just kind of when I, just have random stuff that I needed sound filled in for at work and whatever, but it's got some chanty, it's got some just good fantasy music in there, and it's like a little hype mixed in with a little chill. I think it's a really good, well done soundtrack.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. There's only been 2 times in my life when I'm playing a game where the music kind of stops me in my tracks. And the time when you go into the tavern and Priscilla's playing Wolvenstorm.
Oh, yeah.
On the lute or whatever, I got chills, I was like, oh man, this is like amazing. The other time being Red Dead Redemption, the first one, where that so far starts playing as you're crossing the Mexico border. Yeah, I think The Witcher 3, I don't know why I didn't rank it anywhere in here. I didn't even think about it, but it is really top notch. I remember I went to Iceland in 2016, and I remember listening to that soundtrack as I'm driving up the fjords and stuff like that. So it does have a positive, memorable, and like you said, it has a variety of sounds to it. It has the jauntiness, but it also has a lot of influence from Eastern European music, which is really cool. So yeah, no, that's a really good pick. Number 3 for sure. Witcher 3, that's a good one. So hopefully we'll see some cool soundtracks with the 4th one that just got announced.
Oh, they finally announced the 4th one?
Yes. I know CD Red Project's kind of gotten some heat in the last 2 years, but hopefully they can kind of rebound and kind of get back to form. So, all right, those are our number 3s. So, are we ready for number 2 and 1?
Yes, number 2, Reid. Hit me with it.
Number 2, Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Particularly Violet City, Azalea City, which I think is my number 1 there, and Cave / the Ice Path. It just especially the Ice Path one has this cool dirgy sound to it, but the Violet City and Azalea City, they just even listening to them now as a jaded 32-year-old, it just brings me back to being 10, 11 years old and playing this at night under the covers, and I don't know, it's just this is, if I need a nostalgia bomb, I will listen to this soundtrack. It's just
it's a great choice,
super memorable. Again, I think Pokemon Red and Blue were super formative, but I think Crystal, Gold, and Silver are the best Pokemon games, just because it added so much to the game series. I love all the Pokemon games, but I think Gold and Silver are by far my favorite, in part because of the soundtrack and just how memorable it is. Even though you're playing off of a really tiny mono speaker, I don't recommend listening to these songs necessarily on high blast on your computer, because just the way that they're recorded and you're playing it in stereo and your headphones bam, 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 whoa. But I think, yeah, Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal, those 8-bit tunes are just some of my absolute favorites of all time. Do you have any reminiscence of Pokemon games?
I know that I agree their music is really good. I can't necessarily say if I remember Gold and Silver's music off the top of my head, because I did play a lot of their music. I did play a lot of the Pokemon games quietly, because I was usually not supposed to be playing my Game Boy at the time.
Yep, I think that's a rite of passage.
It's 11:30 and I'm supposed to be in bed, but I'm playing Game Boy.
It's you had to do that. If you were a Pokemon fan, you had to do that.
Oh, you had to find ways to smuggle it in, at the taking a poop at church or something like that for an hour.
Yeah, and you're under your covers and you got those terrible clicky lights that you put in the side of it. Oh god, those are terrible.
Oh my god, I remember those so much.
Kids these days have it good, man. I tell you.
You have it good with your backlit LED screens.
I know, man, and their smartphones and just dang kids. But yeah, that's my number 2 is Pokemon's Gold, Silver, Crystal. So what is your number 2?
Is Doom.
Ooh, which Doom? The most recent one?
The newest ones, yes. So, the old Doom soundtrack does, it's good for its time, but, yeah, the new Doom, when did that one come out? 2016?
Yep.
Great songs At Hell's Gates. Rip and Tear. Just some really good family friendly songs on there. Like I said, this is the hype. This is the hype now, you know.
Oh, there's very few soundtracks that are more hype than Doom 16.
I listen to a lot of Doom 16 when I'm at the gym.
Oh yeah.
As probably lame as that sounds, it's just like it's a good way to just get your adrenaline rolling and like you just want to rip off a demon's head.
Yes, absolutely. I have the Doom games. I've never gotten super far in them, but like I know the composer of Doom 16, Mick Gordon, like super cool guitarist. Super, like it reminds me a lot of the band Meshuggah, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah, like just like that style of like really low tuned, like 7 or 8 string guitars, like dun 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 dun. It's really cool. So yeah, no, I can definitely see that being like a top one. Again, it's so extreme, you know. It has to be, extreme. It is a perfect gym playlist for sure. I'll have to definitely listen to more of it and actually finally sit down and play through the whole game. But I know they're amazing games. I know one of my good friends, Ryan, it's his like favorite of all time, so I'll definitely have to
great soundtrack.
Absolutely.
So I have a feeling our number one is probably going to be the same.
Correct. I'm guessing you're also going to say Elder Scrolls.
You would be correct, good sir.
Yeah. These games, it's kind of funny. I'm looking at my top 10 list and like the top 2, there's like 3 of these games here that are, I'd say my favorite game series of all time. Like I said in episode 0 are Elder Scrolls, Pokemon, and Castlevania, and they're all on here. It just so happens to be that the top 2, 1 and 2 are Pokemon and Elder Scrolls. Specifically for me, Never Rising, the title sound of Morrowind, Harvest Dawn from Oblivion, the do 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 do, the really like calm ambient one, and then for Skyrim, Far Horizons, I think is just like some of the best, not just video game music, but some of the best compositions I've ever heard.
No, they're absolutely beautiful. What would you say if you had to rate like main theme for the 3? You know, Morrowind. Where would you rank them?
Oh, since the one that I picked for Morrowind is the theme, I'm going to pick that one. Just like the Morrowind theme. Morrowind means like the world. Morrowind's one of my favorite games of all time. I've never gotten super far, but like just again, when we ever get to an Elder Scrolls episode, I'm going to spend like 3 hours just gushing about what that game means to me and like stuff like that. But yeah,
Oblivion was what got me into the fantasy genre in general.
Yeah, no, Oblivion.
Like, I never used to be a fantasy person, and I played Oblivion, and I was just like pushed all my chips in and went all in on fantasy.
Yeah, Oblivion might be. We can obviously talk about this when we get to the Elder Scrolls series, but which I'm sure we'll do as like a multi-part series. But I think we can both be in the consensus that Oblivion kind of edges out the other ones as the best one.
As far as game goes,
well, overall, yeah.
Yeah, but as I would say, like the music from Morrowind main theme is probably my favorite one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like it literally almost brings me to like tears of nostalgia when I hear it.
Yep, me too. I think the Dragonborn Comes, the chanting one from Skyrim, it just got overplayed a little bit. Like it's not super fun to listen to anymore. And I think the Oblivion theme song, it sounds a little bit too much like the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song.
It does.
So, but the Morrowind is so like it crescendos, and it's just like, oh, I love it.
It does. I think the thing that I do like about the Oblivion theme is it's a little bit more grandiose, which I think is neat, being set in the Imperial City and everything like that. Like the grandioseness of it makes a lot of sense. And then I don't know, Skyrim, like the theme is just a little too dude bro-y for me. It is.
I think a lot of the other songs on the Skyrim soundtrack are better. Like Fire Horizons is like amazing. Yeah. And yeah, the Oblivion soundtrack top to bottom I think is great too. It does feel very like medieval. Like I forget which track it is. Is it like Over the Hill or whatever? It's like it has like the horn intro, like dun 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 dun. But I think all of the like 3, 4, and 5, the theme songs really represent what the game's all about, because like Skyrim obviously has like the chanting and the which is cool because that's what the game's largely represented by. I think, yeah, like you said with Oblivion, it has this grandiose epicness that Oblivion kind of brings, this sort of like apocalyptic event that kind of happens. And I think the theme song of Morrowind is a lot more subdued to begin with, but then it kind of explodes towards the end of it, and it's just this epic scale. And I think that's really kind of how the game plays out too. Is you start off as nobody, but then you kind of get tied up in this conspiracies with like these old gods and stuff like that, and you're in this really bizarre land.
I would say like Morrowind theme song begins really melancholy.
Yes, it is a bit,
like it's
because the whole game
sad,
is
but it's just melancholy, and the whole game is kind of that way too. You know, like it's
very stark. It's a very stark game.
Yeah.
Because I remember playing the game and like you're just wandering around as you do, and because it's one of those games that doesn't tell you anything on what to do. No. And I remember just like wandering.
Racers show up.
Oh God. I remember like just wandering into like a slave camp, like a slave plantation. I'm like, ooh. I'm like 12 years old. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, you're about to learn some really heavy stuff here playing Morrowind.
Here you go, children. All right, so we will absolutely spend time talking about the Elder Scrolls. I think both of us are huge fans of those games. So let's just recap one more time. Mine was, number 10 was Kirby's Adventure. Number 9 was Street Fighter 2. Number 8 was Chrono Trigger. Number 7 was World of Warcraft. 6 was Sonic the Hedgehog, particularly 1, 2, and Knuckles. Number 5 was a split of Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Number 4 for me was Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Number 3 was Fable, particularly the first and second games. Number 2 was Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal. And number 1 is Elder Scrolls. What are your top 10 again?
Mine was Bloodstained, Rituals of the Night, Minecraft, Far Cry Blood Dragon, World of Warcraft, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Red Alert 3, Legend of Zelda, Witcher 3, Doom, and Elder Scrolls.
So looking at what we had in common, let's see. We had World of Warcraft.
WoW, Legend of Zelda,
yep,
and Elder Scrolls. Pokemon did make my honorable mentions list.
Okay. And you kind of had the Castlevania with the Bloodstained, if we consider that an heir apparent. So we had 3 or 4 of them that were similar without knowing what yours were. So that's cool. Yeah, what are your honorable mentions? Let's go with your honorable mentions first.
So Castlevania, Pokemon,
sure.
Super Mario Brothers was on my list, but I cut it. What else? I think those are the only ones really worth mentioning.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that today before we were recording. Like, do I include Mario anywhere? But for me, Mario is it is the video game. You know what I mean? Like it is.
Right.
It's a titan. You know, and Koji Kondo's soundtracks and stuff are so timeless and classic. I don't want to say it's overplayed, but it's amazing. But does it deserve a spot just because it's
because of its success, basically?
Right. I mean, I would definitely, if this was a top 15 list and I rearranged things, or a top 20 list, yeah, I would absolutely put it on there. But I don't know why I didn't include it. It's absolutely all of those melodies. I could hum every tune from most of those games, but for whatever reason, they just didn't get on here. Anyway, my honorable mentions, I had 6 or 7 of them. Metal Gear Solid 2. Particularly the theme song, where it's all industrial, it's Matrix style.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3, the Firelink Shrine I always loved, Soul of Cinder, the Ping Pong song as it's called, and Yorm the Giant theme. Minecraft was also on my list of honorable mentions. Final Fantasy IV, particularly the Celtic Moon reprisal, which was I don't know if it was the actual original composers that did this, but someone took the Final Fantasy IV soundtrack and made it Celtified. So they made it with traditional Celtic Irish instruments. It's really cool. The theme of love is amazing. Kingdom Hearts is a really good one.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've always heard Final Fantasy had amazing music. I just never got into the Final Fantasy game, so I'm sure if I would have played them more, they'd probably be on my list. But yeah, I've always heard great things about them. I should at least just break down and actually listen to some of the music one of these days.
Oh yeah, you absolutely should. They would definitely be on my top 15, top 20 list. It just barely. I mean, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy VII are just incredible soundtracks. Kingdom Hearts, which is kind of related to Final Fantasy, just like I said before with Chrono Trigger, the guy E-Rock on YouTube, he does some amazing shreds of Kingdom Hearts songs. What is it? Dearly Beloved is an amazing song. Halo is a great soundtrack. Just the title track of Halo is super memorable. Going backwards in time would be Mega Man 2, Dr. Wily's stage is just iconic. But yeah, again, if I opened this up to top top 15, top 20, top 30, top 50. Like, I could have a lot more of a conversation about this, but I think, these are some definitely good coverages, and I think it's just fun to kind of take a breath from like breaking down narratives and stuff. Just kind of look at how important gaming music is.
Look at all the aspects as a whole.
Exactly. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this slight romp into our top 10 gaming soundtracks. Again, they might change over time. Who knows if we kind of come back to this, if, we play more games and stuff like that. We appreciate you guys kind of sticking with us. I know it's kind of like been a few weeks, if not a month, between our last posting, but we're still here doing stuff. We're just kind of busy right now.
We're busy boys.
But I will be at the Midwest Gaming Classic this weekend, which I'm super excited because there's going to be a lot of like YouTubers and podcasters that I really admire there. So I'm going to like bring some games for them to like autograph. It'll be pretty cool. I'm super excited for that, and I'm super excited for the summer where I can kind of devote more time to this and kind of maybe do some individual side podcasts. But like I said, I'm going to create a playlist of our soundtrack picks from today's episode and post them on YouTube, so you guys can check that out. Jeremy, anything final to say before we head out?
I think let's get her rolling here.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take off for now, but we hope to see you on the Flippity Flip. Like always, we appreciate you. Come check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. I'm still getting the YouTube channel all set up, but you can download us anywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean is our like main hub. So for me and Jeremy, we are going to say goodnight and see you next time. Adios.
Thanks for sticking around, guys.